This is our prayer box. We keep it in the back there, sitting underneath the painting from the Sistine Chapel, so that it's accessible to you at all times, so that you can put your prayers into the box. They'll sit there in our prayer box locally here in the church, where they'll be prayed over each Sunday until we send them to Silent Unity, where they'll stay for, I think, 60 days, and they'll be prayed over there too. But remember, whether you write your prayers down, whether you ask them aloud at the prayer request at the end of the service, or whether you just keep them within, Spirit knows what you need, even before you ask, and your prayers are answered. We give gratitude for this, for Spirit within us, and for the sharing fellowship that we have with each other. And we lift these prayers up to Spirit. Thank you. And so it is. Amen. Amen. if you'll join me, the daily word is in the insert inside the bulletin. The daily word today is divine order. The order of spirit is always unfolding. The order of spirit is always unfolding if I have eyes to see. I may mistakenly focus on appearances. Prayer is not a magic wand, but a way for me to change how I see things. I close my eyes and shift my vision to a bigger picture of the activity of the divine in and through me. I open my mind to the new revelations of Spirit's good. With every breath, divine energy lives as me. I gratefully surrender to the spiritual certainty that my life is in divine order. Like seedlings growing in fertile soil, new thoughts of harmony and abundance take root in my mind. I see with greater clarity the order constantly unfolding. And our scripture today is from Daniel chapter 2, verse 21. He changes times and seasons. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. And now if you'll please join as we recite the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Let's continue to move deeper into our awareness of I am. With every breath, just move deeper. With every breath out, release. Deeper and release. As we move into that awareness, we invite this awareness to be present even when we are not paying attention. We invite this awareness to be more engaged, more involved in our consciousness. It is our choice. Just allow I am. And think of all the times you say those words, I am. And ask that I am consciousness to remind us every time, yes, I am. I am divine energy. I am God walking on this planet. I am. Continue breathing deeply when you think about it and allow that energy. And pay attention. What is going on? What is going on with me as I allow? Allow I am. I am reminded of my magnificence. And I am aware in this moment that each of us are magnificent. know that about myself. I know that about you. And I know that as I look out to others, even when they're not aware, they claim I am. I am. And allow your breathing to move you deeper into the quietness, into the light that is the light of the world. Let us move into that silent place knowing I am the light in the silence, in the silence. And taking another breath, bring this light up into your awareness and reach that light out into any concerns that you may have in this moment. Personal concerns. Just allow the thought of whatever that is to be in the light. Not asking for a resolution, just allowing. Now reach out and gather those that you love and care about. Bring concerns you may have about them, for them, concerns they may have, and just bring them into this light, this divine energy, this divine mind. All of the resources of all that is are in this light. And let us reach out and embrace our larger community. Letting our thoughts embrace first that close to us, our town, our county, our state, our country, our world, our universe. Knowing that this I am is this amazing supporter, creator, and holder of all that is. And for this, we give our thanks, our awareness, and so it is. Amen. Breathe in this I am energy. And think about it, every time we say those words, Of course, in unity, you grew up saying, don't take God's name in vain. You know what that means in unity? It means you say, I am, and you attach it to a negative. So be careful. So this week we're following on this verse that just really grabbed hold of me. And well, first I will read the verse for you. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds, so that you may discern what is the will of God. So this week we're really focusing so you can discern the will of God. Last 2 weeks we've really been talking about what does it mean to be conformed to the world. And you don't have to answer in the moment, but I'm asking you, have you really had any awareness? Here's how I'm being conformed through habit, through, well, that's the way it is, all of this process, and say, oh, I can change that. I can come at this from a different perspective. Because our job is not to change that out there which we don't agree with. Our job is to change our perspective, and then who knows what happens. Sometimes it just stays out there, and because that's what other people are invested in, and other times it just totally disappears. So, but this discerning the will of God, think about that. What does this mean? And how do we do that? And this is, your mind is transformed and renewed so you can do that. So what does a transformed, renewed mind look like, feel like, experience? And it is that mind that says, just because everybody does it, or just because people say this is the way it is, or just because people don't like or do like, or our mind is being constantly transformed. So this is not just a one-time process. You begin becoming aware of that process. So how do I discern what is the will of God? It's a pretty big question. Pretty big question. The will of God governs the whole universe, and you and I are supposed to figure that out. Oh, spoiler alert, you can leave now because I'm going to tell you the answer is yes. Yes. You don't want to take on that responsibility? So how do we do this? So what is the first step? First step is, where do I understand that God is? This divine mind, divine spirit. Now, we look at things a little bit differently, but it doesn't matter how you and I look at it to say that divine is working in my life, but I do have to know where that's coming from, because if I believe in God out here, then I'm looking at God out here. And if I believe in that divine mind, that divine spirit, then I'm looking within me. So we have to be clear, what is our understanding? Now, Unity teaches God is here, and that each one of us are a manifestation of that. Now, did Unity make that up? Well, what did the Bible say? Now, the Bible is our textbook. We don't quite look at it in some of the ways that other people do, but it is our textbook. So, Genesis 1:26 through 28, so this has come up several times in the last few months. Then God said, let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness. So God created humankind in its image, in the image of God it created them, male and female it created them. So that's the very beginning of our holy book that says we are created in the image and likeness of this divine energy. Well, skip forward quite a few books to Corinthians, and so this is Paul. And 1 Corinthians 3:16, do you not know that you are a temple of God and the Spirit of God dwells in you? So he's saying this to the Corinthians. And almost the same words. This is really interesting because just 3 chapters later he's saying in chapter 6 verse 19, do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. So where we came up with, in so much of our traditional teaching, that the way you approach God is out there, because it's very clear, and there's many other verses in here throughout the New Testament that says, God is in here. So for us, it's pretty clear that discerning the will has to come from within. Now, it gets a bit tricky, doesn't it? How do I know what is the will and what is ego? How do we do that? So Charles Fillmore says it this way: God's will is always perfection and good for all God's children. God does not will suffering or imperfections in any form. So when I have this amazing idea, my first thought needs to be, what are the consequences of this? Now, I want to share with you, the consequences might be, if I decide to do this, my family over here might not like it. That's not the kind of suffering that this is talking about. Your family is responsible for their feelings. If what you choose to do is making somebody else unhappy, you need to look at that. Am I their only support? Am I? But if it's, you shouldn't do that. That's not safe. Oh, people aren't supposed to do that. Oh, you'll never be a success in that. Ignore that process. You're following, here's what I'm doing. So you begin to examine that. What are the consequences of this process? So does it bring harm in any way to others in the world? Harm in any way? Now, do we have any vegans sitting out there right now? We do have some vegetarians, I'm pretty sure, to say, at some point, what we do, if you're a meat eater like me, if you use leather, is that bringing harm? Well, yeah, at some level that is, and we have to be aware of what our consequences are of that and make choices, because no matter how hard you try, at some point you have to know, I will be creating harm to something in this world, and am I willing to take that responsibility, to know I have that responsibility, and to the best that I am able to mitigate that, because we just have to know that, to do that. And to think about what is that God in us. And I came up with another little metaphor that I really like. I'm going to borrow the Christ candle here. Now, sometimes it's really hard, even for people who've been in this process, to really accept this idea that I am God, and I've got all the energy that is God within me. And I'm not thinking about this candle, this fire that is in here. Does this fire have everything in it that is in any form of fire whatsoever? The most raging forest fire, whatever, this fire has all the properties of that fire. The other thing is, from this little fire, I could start a raging forest fire. So if we think about that divine energy in us, I am divine energy, just like this flame is. I've got all of that resource that is the divine. And when I tune into that, when I ask for awareness, what is the next step? What is mine to do? And think about, yes, I have all those resources. And in my own self, I am this flame. However, what I send out there ignites. It can be a small fire, it can be a big fire. Anyway, I just thought I would share that with you. I just really feels appropriate to me. Particularly, when Jesus said, "You are the light of the world," and he wasn't talking about electric light bulb, he was talking about a flame, because that's what they had back in the day. So you also know me well enough that I'm a big believer in beginning with the small stuff, the everyday happening. So you think, how do I listen to this voice? How do I allow it to become part of my everyday guidance, that I become aware of it? And it is, as we have this shifted mind of looking out there and we think about, oh, I shouldn't do that. I'm not going to go that direction. And you find out, oh, it's a good thing I didn't. There was a big traffic jam or something else. You begin paying attention to those little voices. Because sometimes those voices can keep you out of major challenges. They can help you get out of challenges also. So again, from Charles, divine guidance is the supportive flow of divine mind. The supportive flow. So it's an ongoing flow in this process. As you become more in tune with the process, the supportive flow is always there guiding, even when sometimes it doesn't make sense. So here's a story from Susan Holliday, who's up there in Montreal. And let me tell you, it's just as hot in Montreal as it is down here. Been there, done that this time of year. Anyway, she's up there visiting her family, and she sent an email out a few days ago, and she said, a tiny coincidence in the chaos. Friday afternoon, and this was a week ago, I went grocery shopping. On the way toward the cashier, I detoured and picked up a tray of party sandwiches, 2 packs of hot dogs. So she's on the way to the cashier. She has all the stuff she's already went there for. 2 packs of hot dogs, a tray of ready chicken nuggets just to eat, more bacon, more eggs. Why? I thought. Well, it's the weekend. Then Saturday morning, emergency. Michelle, her daughter, went to pick up 4 kids to foster for the weekend. Then her grandson, Dylan, brought over 5 13-year-old friends, and you can probably bet they were all boys. Sunny, her granddaughter, said she was working hard and gave up her own bedroom. Thank goodness Alan quickly returned from the lake where he was working to get ready for the summer. All that extra food that we don't usually buy, whoosh, gone in a whirlwind. Thank you, God. Okay. She's already done what she's doing, and something says, buy all, and I know that family, this is not something that is usual, so for her to feel that and to actually do it, it's really something out of the ordinary. So you listen, what is going on? What is asking me to do something that I wouldn't have thought of? Now, I want to share a little story of my own. So Thursday, as I was going out to the grocery store, and as I left the house, I realized that the termite guy was at my next door neighbor's. And I didn't think too much about it. I went on and did my grocery shopping, and I came back, and when I came back, there was 3 orchid vehicles and several people standing around, and one was obviously a supervisor, and all of a sudden it went, you know what, if I'm going to sell this house, I've got to have a termite bond. So I walked over and talked to the supervisor type, and he gave me his card and got my information. He said, well, somebody will call you and we'll get this set up. And sure enough, a few hours later, somebody called me, and they came out the next day and did the inspection. They said, oh yeah, you need us, you need us. And we'll come on Monday, and when we get all done, you'll have everything you need for your termite bond. I had the strangest feeling it stayed with me for 2 full days, that a big puzzle piece just shifted into place for me. So there was 2 things going on. First of all, I hate making phone calls. I don't mind talking on the phone. You can call me all you want, we'll talk for hours on the phone. I hate picking up the phone and making phone calls. So guess what? I didn't have to make any phone calls, responded to a few, but I didn't have to call up and figure out who they were and who to call. There it was. The second one is this piece of feeling something's coming together, and what is all that about? Because at some point, I would have had, something would have called this to my attention, and I would have had to get, somebody to come out and do this termite bond, but it feels like it was important now. So I'm leaving that with you at some point. Why is it important that it's happening now, quickly. Tomorrow it'll all be done. So I'll share you that ongoing process. But what I'm trying to communicate is there is something within us that when we're paying attention gives us information. The one orchid guy out there didn't spark anything. 3 vehicles, yeah, okay, you're not going to pay attention to that? Okay, let me bring more in. So you begin paying attention. What's going on in your life to see what's going on, what is happening? What are my messages? What are the results? What message did I get? And I went, shh, I don't even pay attention to that. And you go, ooh, that was important. So you begin gathering this information so this can work for you. So then what is the next step? And I put these kind of in steps, but however, this next one is not, it's not in order. It is something that permeates through all this process. So it's to take time to listen. This is an ongoing process. You pay attention to the little voice that suggests, reminds. One of the things that I did when last week I went to see Joyce, and so I asked Joyce Burke. So she's not been able to come because she had some dramatic health conditions, and now all of that is mostly healed, but she's hooked up to an oxygen line and can't go further than the house except for to go to doctor's appointments. She'd love to have some visitors. However, I said, Joyce, how do you hear that voice? And she looked at me kind of funny, probably like any of you, or even somebody looking at me and just asked me that question. Carol, how do you hear the voice of God? She thought about it for a moment. She said, well, she says, I'll have a situation, a challenge, or whatever, and I'll ask for ideas, and ideas come. What does Charles Fillmore say about this divine ideas? That's what this is all about. So you listen to that and you say, okay, listening. However, also doing some conscious time is also foundational. It's very interesting because we had this conversation down in the Sunday school room this morning. It's interesting how often that happens. And how do you begin this process? And one of the ways I began way back in the day was, standing in line, which, I can get real antsy, none of you ever get antsy standing in line. You're just, standing in line or in a waiting room, in a waiting room, I always make sure I take a book, but there are others, standing in line at the long traffic light. I'll go all the way around things to keep from being at the long traffic light down there, wherever, you go across the parkway area there. But think about it. In those few minutes, standing in line could actually be 5 or 10 or 15 minutes, depending on the situation and what's going on. Okay, let me use this time standing here to go into that quiet place. Let me use this time sitting at the traffic light. Let me use this time as I'm sitting in the doctor's office. And then, I got thinking about Brother Lawrence. Anybody familiar with Brother Lawrence? So he was a monk back in the 1300s, and I found out just reading he was a soldier before he went into the monastery. But when he went into the monastery, he was taken in as, okay, here's the person who's going to do the scrubbing and the cleaning and things like that. And what's really interesting is, so here's Brother Lawrence in a fairly large monastery doing the dishes and cleaning the sand. Can you imagine cleaning the shoes of all these monks out there back in the 1300s? Guess where they'd all been out walking around? Who's the only monk in that monastery who is remembered? I'm sure all those other monks were writing and they were doing the things that monks do. Only Brother Lawrence is remembered, and he's remembered because the little things, the everyday things, the washing the dishes, the cleaning the shoes. He also had the task of going into town and buying the groceries that they didn't grow on the place. He used all of that time to create and maintain that relationship. So when we look about the things that we do on an everyday basis, now I suggested this to somebody in class and she went kind of, but it works. You know, you're doing something you don't like to do. What if, okay, and most of these things, for me it's dishes. I do end up usually doing them once a day, but they'll pile up till then. But when I finally get around to doing the dishes, it's to say, I don't have to think about that. Oh, okay, let me shift my mind. Let me go to that place that Brother Lawrence discovered. Let me do that. And I have another task I really dislike, which is cleaning the bathroom floors. You know, it's to say, okay, I don't have to think about this. And somebody else mentioned, you know, one way, every time you're doing something cleaning, you can also say, and I'm cleaning off, I'm cleaning out what needs to be forgiven. I'm cleaning out, here's where I got angry. I'm cleaning out. Or maybe I'm just polishing up. You know, I'm polishing up. So we begin to think about how do we discern the will of God, and it's by bringing that awareness of that light, that fire that is within us. And how do you talk to God? You know, I'm always just chattering away. I chatter away and I'm always saying, okay, God, here's the situation. Or every once in a while it's, all right, I got myself into this, you're going to have to get me out of it. Always knowing, you know, because I talk to myself too. And when I talk to Carol, I'm very aware I'm talking to personality Carol. When I'm talking to God, I am totally aware that I'm talking to that power that is within me that can do these things. And, you know, some of the things, you know, drive this car through me. You know, if it's raining and I'm in traffic, if you're going through Birmingham and it's pouring down and you can't hardly see and it's cars all around you. Okay, thank you, God, thank you, God, thank you, God. Knowing, inviting that divine, yeah, it's my hands on the wheel, but it is that presence that is within me that is doing everything that needs to be done, seeing those kinds of things. You know, ideas for my Sunday talk, and of course that happens all the time. You know, or I might have an idea, but I'm looking for stuff that needs to come in, and Susan sends an email. You know, I'm always asking, what is my next step? And that's a biggie. You know, if something comes up, okay, I have this bright idea, I'm going to do this. Is that God? Is that ego? All right, Spirit, if this is you, show me the next step. And I always say, gently, easily, handwriting on the wall. You know, make it very, very clear. And guess what? When those steps come, I know, you know, there's more light on the path. If what I'm seeing constantly is blocks, you know, there's a message, not necessarily that what I'm doing is not good to do, but either this isn't the time or that's not the way. It says step back, regroup, pay attention to what is going on. So one of our 12 powers is judgment. And this is both wisdom and discernment. Now we get a lot of that. Don't judge, you know, all that negative stuff. And that's our personality out there. This is good, this is bad. But when we think about it from discernment and wisdom, this process of looking, how do I discern? I'm constantly in that process, not judging. If I catch myself in that place of saying, oh, that's bad, oh, look at them, you know, and pay attention. I know there's several people here, including myself, that this is kind of an ongoing thing because, you know, stuff comes across Facebook, how have I moved? How have I moved that I go, okay, that's where they are, that's fine, that's their opinion. There's no need for me to get caught up in that opinion. And so in John 7:24 it says, do not judge by appearances, but judge with right, meaning divine judgment, with that discernment. And in conclusion, so I know a lot of you also work with the Course in Miracles, and it says, there's no such thing as a meaningless thought. Carry that out, and there's no such thing as meaningless words or actions. Everything you and I do has ripples into the cosmos. We are, yes, discerning the will of God, and so it is.
Thank you, Carol, as always. We're going to go ahead and stand and sing our next song. It's in the red book if you want to follow along there. It's number 209, or you can follow along on the wall. 209. Let there be unity. Let there be unity in all the world today. Let it be known that God alone can show the way. Let there be truth in all the hearts of men for truth. Make them free. Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. Let there be unity in all the world today. Let there be love in everything I do and say. Yes, let there be unity. Let it last through eternity. And let there be unity in me. We're gonna sing that whole song again. Ready? Back to the beginning. Got it. Perfect. Let there